What's up guys, Everything Apple Pro here, and we've got a lot to talk about in regards to the new iPhones coming out later this year, the new iPhone 10 in new colors, and so on. So we've produced another batch of renders. We've been very busy. I've had a bunch of computers working at the same time just to make this happen today because a lot of news has just broke and I wanted to talk to you guys about that. Alright, so just to give you a little insight into what happens when we have concept renders. So rendering on the Beast here, and we got more over here. So one computer, two computer. What's up, Bro King and Peter? Welcome back from Hawaii.
Thanks.
Going back in a little. We got, what do we got over here? We got another one and another one on this guy. So it's a lot of work to bring you guys one simple concept. Namely, the pricing of this year's iPhones has leaked, and very good news in regards to that. So first thing I wanted to mention is our design and renders. So we have rendered the iPhone, let's tentatively call it the iPhone 11 for 2018 and the iPhone 11 Plus, and I'll get to the naming here in just a second. The changes that we've incorporated are the smaller notch. So it was rumored earlier that the notch would be shrinking on this year's iPhone, and we did it in our last concept, but I didn't like the way it looked. It didn't look very Apple OEM-esque. So I think personally what Apple would do, since they're combining the infrared sensor and the front-facing camera, is that they would combine it into one. It would shrink only in width, not in actual height. So I think that this solution here looks a lot more OEM-esque, something Apple would actually do on this new iPhone. And as a result, you get a little bit more screen. It looks, a little funny. Everyone is copying Apple with the notch. So it's almost like this change would look like an Android phone, but that's not the truth. It's the Android phones that are looking like this. But let me know what you guys think. What would Apple do? Because the rumor is the notch will be shrinking, and we're just trying to accommodate that in our renders. Anyways, on the back, we can see some exclusive branding for both Product Red and the iPhone 11. And I'm calling it the iPhone 11 because I really don't know what to call it. When I say iPhone 10, people think I'm talking about last year's model. If I say 2018 iPhone, just doesn't roll off the tongue very well. So I'm going to call it iPhone 11 for the purposes of just making it more distinctive from last year's model. So we've branded it on the back according to that naming, the Product Red version, which by the way, I really like. It's rumored to happen for this year's iPhone 10 model. It still might happen before the end of the year, so I think that that would be cool, but just for fun, we rendered it on next year's model. Maybe Apple would offer it in the lineup right away, which I kind of doubt, but would be cool to see. So we've got a Product Red and of course the gold model, which is rumored to happen as well on the iPhone 10 model. It could be both gold or red or both, but we decided to render it on the iPhone 11, as well as I think they'll have the production issue sorted by the time that this thing comes to market. So all around, really great concepts. I want to say thank you to the Bro King. Managed to squeak out one more concept before his big dates. And of course, this is the larger 6.5-inch iPhone 11 Plus, I'll call it again, versus the 5.8. There's a huge difference in screen estate here. I mean, it is absolutely massive, and it's the phone that I want to use personally when it comes out. So that's going to be really neat. And there's absolutely great news when it comes to the pricing of this year's iPhone lineup. So if you guys were worried about that, Apple exceeding the $1,000 mark on the new iPhones, you don't have to be worried anymore. Well, not unless you want to get into the high gigabyte models. So RBC Capital Markets analyst is claiming that they know Apple's pricing strategy for this year's iPhones. And to begin, the iPhone 11 5.8-inch model will be priced at $899. That's a full $100 less versus last year's model with more technology, improvements, and so on. And then they go on to the larger iPhone 11 Plus, which will be 6.5 inches, well, almost 6.46 inches, and they're saying it'll start at $999. It's very likely that Apple could have very similar gigabyte strategies, 64 gigabytes for base and then going up to 256, although 512 could be a possibility as Huawei is actually offering a 512 gigabyte phone soon. So it definitely is a possibility in the future, but not guaranteed. So let's stick to 256 for now. Either way, that strategy is incredible, and for Apple to offer that at a lower price point with improvements to the processor, camera, battery life, and even improvements to the screen with the notch being reduced, that would be fantastic. So for anybody that didn't want to upgrade to the smaller 5.8-inch iPhone, you'll be able to get a full stop larger at 6.5 for the same price that you would have paid last year. Now, aside from that, the rest of the lineup would follow suit. The 6.1-inch LCD model is supposed to start at about $799, $699 to $799, but this analyst is saying $799. It'll still have the LCD display display, the cutout, much of what the more expensive models have, aside from the organic LED display, but it'll have mostly what those have, just without those luxury points. It'll still have the A12 chip and 1 GB less of RAM, but it'll be pretty close and priced appropriately at $799. Now, if you go down one more stop, you're gonna get to the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus series, which Apple is gonna lower further to $549 and $669. Go lower to the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus, you're getting $449 and then $569 as well. And then if you go even lower than that, Apple will still be selling the iPhone SE reportedly for $349, considering the fact that they don't announce the SE2, which I'm hoping they do. And if that one's being sold, I really don't know where it would fall into on the category. But this is what the analyst is saying the strategy is for Apple this year. Now, why is it exactly that Apple is dropping the price on these new iPhones? Digitimes is reporting that Apple's found a way to produce these new iPhones for 10% less. And that 10% could be manufacturing costs or parts cost. It doesn't really say, but we know that Apple is producing these at 10% less. And they also added that in 2017, these iPhones cost $400, a little bit over $400 to make the iPhone 10 series, and that this year they'll cost 10% less. So that should be about a $360 or around there parts cost or total cost to make this phone, not counting marketing and all that. But that's still a pretty good margin for Apple. And of course, they'll be able to sell it to you for $100 less. And Digitimes is also reporting that Apple will be changing strategies in the way that they start producing these iPhones later this year. So they're going to start an early production run as early as the second quarter of 2018. Usually they start production in like June, July to August. So this is going to be pretty early for them, as they want to prevent all of the bottleneck issues they had with the iPhone 10 last year. And that included the low yield rates of the 3D model sensors, and as a result, they weren't able to stockpile enough iPhones, so for the launch, they weren't as prepared as they wanted to be. Basically, the strategy revolves around having as many iPhones as possible at launch so they can sell them while the excitement is high, as it was detailed in the research notes. So basically, they don't run out of units to sell at launch, and eventually people's interest wanes, so they don't sell as many in the long run, so they want to have as many units as possible at launch. And could it be that Apple is finally getting serious about IP68 water resistance? I definitely hope so, because I could use that on my iPhone. I actually damaged one of mine earlier this year due to water. So IP68 would be great. And the evidence is that Apple has applied for a bunch of patents that have to do with improved water resistance techniques. If we actually look at these images, you'll see that even on the screws around the lightning port, Apple has detailed a way to make those watertight. An improved lightning connector that can create a seal between the lightning jack and the actual port, which is quite interesting, as well as new techniques to keep water out of the buttons and so on. So all of these pictures and notes add up to the fact that Apple is working on improved IP68 water resistance possibly. And there's a very interesting detail in there that Apple has a coating for the actual surfaces of the phone, the chassis, that would expel water or reject it. And this is essentially a hydrophobic coating that disperses water away from these surfaces. And that way it's not going to get into the phone as easily. And from earlier in the month, there's another patent that details a wedge-shaped lightning connector, which is quite interesting. It's unknown if the actual port would change as a result, but when you would insert it, it creates a seal that would prevent water from going in. So does this mean that you can charge your phone underwater, or while charging it can be splashed and you don't have to worry about it? Who knows? That's definitely a dangerous road for Apple to go down, but we'll see what happens with these. There's a lot of improved water resistance possibly in the works. So in my video about the Apple Watch 4, we talked about micro LED and how Apple's working on it and that we might see it in the Apple Watch 4 later this year. The truth is, I might have jumped the gun a little on that. It probably won't happen for a few years. There was a wonderful article written up by a CNET writer, and he's detailing all the benefits of micro LED, more efficient, longer lasting, brighter, sharper resolution, better viewing angles, higher contrast ratio, all that good stuff. But at the end, there's an article about why it won't be happening anytime soon. We'll have to wait probably a few years for this technology. The truth is, while it's available, Apple has a working version of micro LED on an Apple Watch. It's just a scalability issue. When you want to produce it in mass numbers, it's going to be really expensive at first because the tools, to be geared to produce something like this, no company has that ready right now. To reproduce it, it's going to be very expensive and very hard to do. And I wanted to show you guys Martin Hajek's version of the product red iPhone 10, which would be coming later this year. Unknown if it would be on next year's version, but I like his concept a lot too. The colors are very rich, very deep. I could certainly see Apple doing something like this, and with that stainless steel band, I think that would be a great combo. So very beautiful. I'll leave a link down below if you guys want to check that out in full. So apparently Apple is working on a flip phone.
Or this from Westworld. This is their new foldable phone that they shared with the producers. So apparently Bank of America is now producing iPhone reports, analyst reports on Apple, and they're saying that Apple is working on a foldable phone for release in 2020. And I'll just leave this here. Mark Gurman certainly disagrees and says, no, they are not. So Bank of America, I don't know where you got your sources, your information, but not happening. If Mark Gurman says it, definitely not happening. Just thought that you guys should check this concept out as well. Kind of funny. If Apple were to release a flip phone in the future, this is likely what that would look like. So I thought that was a really funny piece of news. Throw that in there. Okay, guys, and those are the leaks for this year's iPhones. The truth is, there have been almost no component leaks. Apple seriously has things on lockdown. I'm impressed that they've lasted this long without something big leaking already. Maybe there's just not much to leak in terms of design, so nobody wants to bother even, who knows? But things have been really, really quiet lately. In any case, we've learned about pricing. Apple's going to be producing them earlier this year in order, to have a bigger supply at the release. IP68 water resistance could finally be happening, and we have a red and gold iPhone 10 version possibly coming up here very soon. So hope you guys enjoyed our concepts. Stay tuned for any and all new info in the future. Peace.